The 1916 version of Ramona was also very popular, which is indicated by the print that we have, which actually carries the date of 1920, meaning that it was a reissue even then. So this film just keeps going on and on. So now we come to the 1928 one, directed by Edwin Carew, who actually himself was a Chickasaw Indian. His father actually was an Indian agent for the Chickasaw Nation, and he grew up, I believe, in Texas. If you notice in the film at the beginning, the screenplay by a man named Finney Fox. Finney Fox is actually Edmund Carew's brother, and Edwin Carew was also known as J. Fox. They also had another brother who was in films whose name was another Fox. I can't remember his first name right now. So you can see, I was really astonished seeing this, at just how beautiful the photography is. I love these late 20s silent films and the way the photography glows and the way the light, and obviously they loved Dolores Del Rio's face. I can't believe half the movie is her face, which is just wonderful. And I've never seen Warner Baxter looking so oily. I was saying, this is not, I leaned over to my friend Rachel and said, this is not the same Warner Baxter I know from 42nd Street. Vera Lewis, an article that we have about her, a promotional article, says that this is the first film in which she actually gets to smile. She made a career out of playing bitter older women. Well, very shortly thereafter, sound comes in, and pretty much within the next few years, another version of Ramona is mounted, this time by 20th Century Fox, directed by one of my favorite directors, Henry King, done in glorious Technicolor with those two fine Indian actors, Loretta Young and Don Amici. This one, I don't really have a whole lot of information about this one. I know it is still available out there. I'm actually waiting to see it at some point in the next few weeks. It has been put out by 20th Century Fox as part of their cinema archives. You can get it through Amazon if you're so inclined. And then, well, I'm going to let my colleague Valerie talk about this one. This is one of our favorites.
So maybe as a demonstration of how lasting this story is, in 2000, this was made into a telenovela in Mexico, and as most soap operas do, they took a couple liberties with the story. They extended it to 69 episodes. So there was a lot more backstory there actually was a lot more of a backstory to Vera Lewis's character, Senora Moreno, and about maybe why she ended up kind of bitter in her older age. And so to give you a flavor of, George and I actually had a really fun time watching some of the clips of the episodes. It was in Spanish, we didn't understand what was going on, but
it's all on YouTube.
If you care to see, and here is a preview of the opening credits. Ramona, but well, now we get to the meat of the thing, the rebirth of Edwin Carew's Ramona. As we talked about, this film was incredibly popular when it came out. The New York Times gave it a rave review. The famous reviewer at that time, Mordaunt Hall, just praised this film to the heavens. And then he followed it with a review of another film that was released at the same time that he just hated. Said it was just the most dour, awful, dull film he'd ever seen. And it was Steamboat Bill Jr., for those of you who are familiar with Buster Keaton. As you can see, the promotion went on and on for this film. Magazine covers, a lot of advertising. We even found that they even did song slides of that wonderful Ramona tune so that the whole audience could sing along with it. And if I'd been thinking about it, we would have had you play for that. No, don't. interesting paperwork on this thing, showing different ideas to promote it. Because I think one thing that United Artists knew, although this was a big budget movie and had a lot of prestige behind it, it was a silent movie in a world that was quickly adding sound to it. So they had everything from sandwich board men, giving a prize to a woman who will name her newborn child Ramona, dot-to-dot puzzles, all these different things. And you can see over there, scores, music cues. This actually was the first film released by United Artists with a sound score on record. No dialogue, just music and sound effects. Come on. You can see some of the posters that were put out for it. A 24-sheet poster that would go on a billboard. Come on. These things are so... We're using new technology here. It's kind of throwing me for a loop. All right. So, anyways, I know why it's waiting for me. I was going to tell you why I think that the film disappeared. It's because I think, as often happened, the film came out in 28, and by 1936, 20th Century Fox was making a remake. Well, they had to get the rights for it, and so they had to buy the rights to the 1928 version from Edwin Carew and United Artists. And when that usually happens, the film company will turn over all the elements that they have on that film to the other company. So Fox probably took the negative and whatever else, put it in storage. In 1937, there was a huge fire at the Fox Film Warehouse in New Jersey that took out most of their early collection. That's probably what happened to Ramona. But thanks to our good friends in Prague, they held on to this film. And how did they get it? Well, since it was a silent film, the international, the ability to show it anywhere was really easy, because all you do is you change the titles. So this film, probably at the end of the run, ended up over there, was sent over there by United Artists, went through who knows how many countries, ended up in Czechoslovakia, and just stayed there, because by that time, it was probably 1930-31, there was no way that United Artists was going to pay to have the film sent back to the States, because at that point it was just another old silent film, and no one was going to want to see it. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the part that we played in this restoration. This is the opening title that is on the print, the Czechoslovakian print of Ramona. Kind of looks like many Czechoslovakian films of the 60s. And just kind of, okay, that's all right. But we knew it could be better. Now, the sad thing was, of course, since there are no existing copies of Ramona, there's very little paperwork. If Edwin Carew's papers are put somewhere, we don't know where they are. So we had to find something else. Now, if you remember, this is what the title looks like now. And it was interesting the way we came up with this. We found it in one of the exhibitor's guides that United Artists submitted to the Library of Congress back in 1928 as part of the copyright for Ramona. There was this packet of advertising materials. And you can see down there in the corner all this stuff. And within this paperwork, they also had the listing of the credits as they appeared in the film. So we were able to match them, basically credit for credit, and put it back together that way. This is what the intertitles look like in the film. Again, problematic for us. I see the word Indian, but we knew that those had to be changed. Now, the gentleman who was partially instrumental, or maybe instrumental, in getting the film brought to us from Czechoslovakia, Hugh Monroe Neely, got a group of people together, and they basically went through and they transliterated all of the Czechoslovakian titles into the film and gave us a list of them. And so this title is this. Now this title does not actually appear in the film. And I'll actually let Valerie, and you're just standing there, come over here, and tell them why that doesn't appear in the film.
So when we went through the film, we did a comparison, and there are actually a lot of scenes where we found that there were titles that were missing, or titles that were just shrunk down. And so we actually were able to find a shooting continuity. And if you can see that the shooting continuity, which, if during a production, a shooting continuity is used to guide the actual production, and things might change afterwards. But the fact that we were able to have this shooting continuity has actual inner titles that they were using to guide the scenes, and especially for some of the opening scenes, it was like shot for shot were the same in this continuity. So we were able to figure out that some of these titles that were missing or were not exactly the same or had been condensed down, that we were able to go to the shooting continuity and actually find out what Carew actually originally intended. So that previous title that you saw before became these two separate titles. Actually, three. And we wanted to use a typeface that was also more contemporary to the time that the film came out, as opposed to the one you saw in the Czech Czech print. And we used three different components. For the initial title, for the initial letter on the descriptive titles, we used a different font typeface than the rest of the actual description, and we call them the little doohickeys with the dashes, also come from the press materials, if you can figure that out. So here is another one where the description of the title was very, very pared down. This is the Czech, and this is
the exact translation of the Czech.
And this is what we were given. And so looking back and comparing it to the continuity script, this is what we actually ended up with. And during the process, we did compare everything. We compared the Czech, the shooting continuity, and we weighed them, went back and forth and connected to what we thought would be most appropriate, or what Carew had originally intended. So we used a combination of both. And one interesting thing is that the character introductions, some of them were pared down to the very, very bare Senora Moreno. Actually, for both Senora Moreno and Ramona, it's just their name. Where Alessandro had, the one you saw in the film, where he was the chief of the Temecula Indians, that was fully fleshed out in the original Czech version. So it's kind of odd to see just our main female characters with they're just their name.
So translating this one was really easy. But then when we went to the continuity, we found this, which says so much more about her character, and really is a really great way of introducing her. And actually, I discovered this section is actually taken directly from the novel. The Tossed Destinies is found in the description of her in the actual book. Speaking of the actual book.
And so there were many scenes that did not have any kind of description. And this is actually, and since when we noticed that some of the titles came directly from the book itself, there was a scene, one of the scenes particularly, that there were no Czech inner titles, and the continuity script unfortunately did not have the last two scenes. So we actually went back to Helen Hunt Jackson's original text. And if you notice, we also noticed from the first two versions, the 1910 and 1916 version, they directly took their inner titles from the text itself. So we went back and we read different parts and took...
The scene in question is one of the most important scenes in the film. It's the murder of Alessandro, which had no intertitles in it. So we're watching, we're like, what the heck is going on? Why are they killing him, And so we've got these are the pages of the book that talk about that offer that scene. And we realized, yeah, he goes out, he's looking for work, he grabs the wrong horse because it's dark, he gets home, he's supposed to return the horse. So we built those intertitles in that section, for the most part, are created by us from the dialogue in the book. And we looked through and we could tell in the scene where the titles had been. Who knows who had taken them out. But they had to be there, otherwise the scene makes absolutely no sense.